I was sitting at my parents' dining table during Sunday dinner, with my entire family gathered around, when my younger sister Heather, dressed in designer clothes my paychecks had bought, smirked across the table at me. She asked loudly, making sure everyone heard, "Brooklyn, how does it feel being the most useless one here?" The whole family erupted in laughter. My parents, my brother Tyler, even my grandmother. I'd been bankrolling all their lives for 6 years while they mocked me. I calmly set down my fork, smiled, and asked one question that stopped everyone cold. "How does it feel knowing this useless one won't be paying your bills anymore?" The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Dead silence fell over the table. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. Her face went pale, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. The mortgage payment was due in 5 days, and without my contribution of $2,300, they couldn't make it. Heather's smirk vanished like someone had wiped it off with a cloth. Her mouth opened, then closed. I knew why. Every single one of her credit cards was linked to my bank account. The shopping sprees, the salon visits, the brunches with her friends where she played the generous one picking up the tab with my money. Tyler nearly choked on his roast beef. His car lease payment, $950 monthly, came directly from my checking account. Had for the past 3 years. My father started stuttering, trying to laugh it off. "Brooklyn, honey, that's not funny. We're family. You don't mean that." But I did mean it. I'd never meant anything more in my entire 32 years of life. I pulled out my phone and opened the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for 6 years. Every single transaction, every payment, every time they'd asked for just a little help that turned into a permanent expense. $342,000, I said clearly, watching their faces. "That's what I've given you over 6 years. Should I read the itemized list?" My mother found her voice. "Brooklyn, you're being dramatic and cruel." "Am I?" I started reading. House payment, $27,600. Heather's shopping and credit cards, $68,000. Tyler's car lease and gambling debts, $43,000. Mom and Dad's vacation to Hawaii last month, $8,000. Grandma's medical bills, $15,000. Heather's college tuition that she dropped out of after 1 semester, $22,000. Should I continue? Heather shot to her feet, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You're being selfish. Family helps family." "You're right," I said, standing up slowly. "Family does help family, but I'm starting to realize I haven't had a family. I've had dependents. There's a difference." My father's face turned red. "After everything we sacrificed to raise you, fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head." "Yes, Dad, until I was 18. That's called being a parent. But I've been paying you back for that and then some for over a decade. I think we're even." I reached into my purse and pulled out my house key. I still lived with them, in the same bedroom I'd had in high school, because they'd convinced me it made more financial sense to stay and help with their expenses. I placed the key gently on the table. I already moved my belongings to a new apartment across town, signed the lease last week, changed all my bank accounts this morning, removed everyone as authorized users on my credit cards. Tomorrow morning, I start my new life, the one where I'm not an ATM machine with legs. My mother burst into tears. "You're tearing this family apart." "No, Mom. I'm just stepping back so you can see it was already broken." I walked toward the door. Behind me, the chaos erupted. My mother shrieking that I was an ungrateful daughter. My father yelling about respect. Tyler calling me a selfish witch. Heather screaming that I'd regret this. My grandmother, who'd been silent until now, said quietly, "Brooklyn, I'm disappointed in you." That one hurt more than I expected. But I kept walking. I made it to my car, hands shaking as I unlocked it. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, feeling the first real sense of freedom I'd experienced in years. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. My phone started buzzing. Text after text, call after call. I ignored them all and started the engine. Then one text came through that made my blood run cold. It was from Heather. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Dad's business partner is my boyfriend. Guess whose job recommendation he's calling to rescind tomorrow? Hope that freedom was worth your career." My hands went numb. Marcus. Heather was dating Marcus Richardson, the senior partner at Sullivan & Associates, the consulting firm where I'd just accepted a promotion. A promotion to senior consultant with a $20,000 raise. The promotion that started Monday morning. Tomorrow morning. The promotion that had finally given me the courage to leave. It was Sunday night, 11:47. In just over 12 hours, I was supposed to walk into that office as a senior consultant, finally recognized for 6 years of exceptional work. And Heather was going to take it away with one phone call from her boyfriend. I sat in my car in my parents' driveway, watching the lights in the house, and realized my liberation had lasted exactly 8 minutes. Monday morning, I arrived at Sullivan & Associates at 7:30, half an hour early. I'd barely slept, running through scenarios in my head all night. Maybe Heather had been bluffing. Maybe Marcus wouldn't actually do anything. Maybe I was panicking over nothing. The receptionist, Amanda, gave me an odd look when I walked in. "Brooklyn, Jennifer wants to see you immediately. She's in her office with someone." My stomach dropped. Jennifer Walsh was my direct supervisor and the one who'd championed my promotion. I walked down the hallway, my new heels clicking against the tile floor. Heels I'd bought specifically for this promotion. Stupid, in hindsight. I knocked on Jennifer's door. "Come in." Jennifer sat behind her desk, her expression cold and confused. Marcus Richardson sat in the chair to the left, looking uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Brooklyn, sit down please," Jennifer said. I sat, my purse clutched in my lap like a shield. Jennifer folded her hands on her desk. "We received some concerning information over the weekend about your character and professional conduct. Information from a family source who felt obligated to inform us before your promotion became official." The room tilted slightly. "What information?" Marcus finally spoke. "Allegations of stealing office supplies, falsifying timesheets, and making inappropriate comments about colleagues. Multiple incidents over the past year." "That's completely false," I said, hearing the desperation in my own voice. "I've never done any of those things. This is my sister. She's angry because I stopped financially supporting my family, and she's retaliating." Jennifer's expression softened slightly. "Brooklyn, I want to believe you, but we received a very detailed email with specific dates, times, and witnesses. We have to take this seriously." "What witnesses? Who saw me do these things I didn't do?" Marcus shifted in his seat. The email was anonymous, citing confidential sources who feared retaliation if they came forward publicly. "That's convenient," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "Anonymous accusations with no way for me to defend myself." Jennifer sighed. "Your promotion is on hold pending an internal investigation. We'll interview staff, review security footage, examine timesheets. Until this is resolved, you'll return to your previous position and salary." The words hit me like physical blows. My previous position, my previous salary. The salary that was $800 a month less than what I needed to afford my new apartment. The apartment I'd signed a lease for based on my promotion salary. The lease that was legally binding. "How long will this investigation take?" 2 to 3 weeks minimum, Jennifer said. "I'm sorry, Brooklyn. I know this isn't the Monday morning you were expecting." I wanted to scream that Marcus was Heather's boyfriend, that this was obviously a setup, that they were all being manipulated. But looking at Marcus's carefully neutral face, I realized he was in on it. He knew exactly what he was doing. And anything I said would just make me look more unhinged. I stood up, somehow keeping my legs steady. "I understand. I'll cooperate fully with the investigation." I walked out of that office and back to my old cubicle. Not the office I was supposed to have. My cubicle. The one I'd decorated with photos and motivational quotes, thinking I'd finally be leaving it behind. Sarah from accounting walked by and actually turned around to avoid me. Brian from marketing, who'd congratulated me on my promotion Friday afternoon, looked away when I tried to make eye contact. They already knew. The whole office already knew I was under investigation. My humiliation was complete. Over the next week, I tried desperately to prove my innocence, but Heather had been meticulous. She'd created fake email trails, somehow doctored timestamps on documents, made it look like I'd been logging hours I hadn't worked. Worse, she'd gotten Tyler to pose as a former coworker from my previous job who'd witnessed my supposedly problematic behavior. When the investigators called him, he gave a convincing performance about my unprofessional conduct. My reputation was being systematically destroyed, and I was powerless to stop it. The financial pressure mounted like water rising in a locked room. My first rent payment on the new apartment was due in 12 days. I had some savings, but not enough to cover an $800 gap month after month for an indefinite period. I picked up freelance consulting work at night, working until 2 or 3 in the morning, then dragging myself to the office at 7:30. I was operating on 4 hours of sleep, living on coffee and granola bars, because I couldn't afford groceries and the extra rent. My coworkers continued to avoid me. 2 friends from work, Emma and Jason, stopped returning my calls. I'd eaten lunch with them every day for 3 years. Now they pretended not to see me in the break room. Thursday afternoon, I was staring at my computer screen, so exhausted the words were blurring, when my phone buzzed with a call from my landlord. "Miss Brooklyn, I'm calling about next week's rent payment." "It'll be on time," I said. "I promise." "I certainly hope so. I run a strict policy about late payments. After 5 days, I begin eviction proceedings." I hung up and put my head in my hands. Eviction. I'd never been late on a payment in my entire adult life. Never missed a bill, never bounced a check, never carried a credit card balance, and now I was staring at potential eviction from an apartment I'd lived in for exactly 0 days. Friday night, I came home after another 18-hour day of work and freelancing. I unlocked my apartment door, flipped on the lights, and froze. My laptop was gone. The laptop with all my freelance client files. All my backup documentation proving my innocence at work. All my personal files, photos, tax documents, everything. I ran through the apartment. Nothing else was missing. Just the laptop. Then I saw it. Spray painted on my living room wall in red paint. Family first. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone and called 911. The police officer who responded was sympathetic but ultimately useless. "This appears to be a domestic dispute between family members. Do you have proof your sister entered your apartment?" "She has a key," I said, then realized my mistake. I gave them spare keys when I first moved in, but so she had permission to be here? Not to steal my property and vandalize my walls. The officer looked uncomfortable. "Without proof of forced entry or witnesses, this is a civil matter. You can file for a restraining order if you feel threatened." After he left, I called Heather. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and innocent. "Brooklyn, I was hoping you'd call. How's the new apartment? You broke into my home. You stole my laptop. You vandalized my wall." "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been having lunch with Marcus all afternoon. Tyler was with us. We have receipts and witnesses. You sound paranoid, Brooklyn. Maybe you should talk to someone about that." She hung up. I stood in my destroyed living room, looking at the red paint dripping down the white wall, and realized they'd planned this. Heather had an alibi. Tyler would confirm it. Marcus would back them up. The police wouldn't help me. I had no laptop, no evidence, no proof, and my entire freelance business had just died. The laptop catastrophe was worse than I initially realized. My entire freelance portfolio had been on that computer. Client presentations, project files, contact lists, everything I'd built over 2 years of side work. I had a major client presentation due Monday morning. A small marketing firm had hired me to analyze their competitor landscape. $2,500 for the project. Money I desperately needed. Without my laptop and files, I had nothing to present. I spent the entire weekend trying to recreate the work from memory, maxing out my one remaining credit card to buy a replacement laptop. $999 I didn't have. I worked 72 hours straight, sleeping in 20-minute increments at my desk, surviving on coffee and whatever food I could scrounge from my nearly empty cabinets. Monday morning, I delivered the presentation. It was terrible. Rushed, incomplete, missing half the analysis I'd originally prepared. The client's face said everything. "This isn't what we discussed, Brooklyn. This isn't the quality we expected based on your portfolio." I tried to explain about the laptop theft, but it sounded like an excuse. A bad excuse. They didn't pay me. Worse, they left a scathing review on the freelance platform where I found most of my clients. Unprofessional and unreliable. Delivered subpar work. Do not recommend. Within 3 days, 2 other clients canceled their projects, citing concerns about my reliability. $4,000 in monthly freelance income, gone. Other freelancers started leaving comments on my profile, warning each other about working with me. My rating dropped from 4.9 stars to 2.1. My freelance career, my safety net, my backup plan was destroyed. I maxed out my credit card buying groceries and gas. I stopped eating lunch at work, telling people I was intermittent fasting. The truth was I couldn't afford food. I lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks. Dark circles appeared under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. My clothes started hanging loose. Coworkers whispered that I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. The family harassment escalated in perfect coordination, like they'd planned it. My mother called every morning at 6:45, sobbing about how they were being evicted and it was all my fault. "We're losing our home, Brooklyn. Our home. Because you're being selfish and vindictive. My father left voicemails at all hours. You're cruel. You're heartless. I don't know who raised you, but it wasn't me. You're not my daughter. My grandmother called on a Tuesday afternoon. That one nearly broke me. I'm so disappointed in you, sweetheart. Family takes care of family. I thought I taught you better than this. I thought you were a good person. Heather took to social media. Posted long, tearful videos about her narcissistic sister who'd abandoned the family in their time of need. About how I'd always been jealous of her. About how she was worried about my mental state. The posts went viral in our extended family network. My cousin Amanda, whom I'd been close with since childhood, blocked me on everything. My aunt sent me a message calling me a disgrace. My uncle posted publicly that I should be ashamed. I was being systematically isolated from everyone I'd ever known. At work, the investigation dragged into its third week, with no resolution. Jennifer pulled me aside on a Wednesday afternoon, her expression grim. Marcus is pushing to terminate you completely. The board is listening to him. He's a senior partner, and you're currently under investigation. This is retaliation, I said flatly. He's dating my sister. Jennifer looked uncomfortable. I can't get into Marcus's personal life, but there might be a way to resolve this. If you write an apology letter admitting to stress-related mistakes in judgment and accept a demotion with a corresponding pay cut, we can close the investigation and move forward. You want me to admit to things I didn't do? I want to save your job, Brooklyn. Without this compromise, I think they're going to fire you. And with the current allegations on your record, you won't be able to work in consulting anywhere in this city. Possibly anywhere in this state. I was trapped. Accept humiliation and a pay cut that would make it impossible to afford my apartment or be fired and blacklisted from my entire industry. That night, I stared at my rent notice. 5 days overdue. The landlord had been calling twice daily. I had $473 in my checking account. Rent was $2,100 monthly. I'd never been late on a payment in my life, and now I was staring at eviction. Thursday night, I gave up. I swallowed every bit of my pride and started writing the false apology letter. Every word felt like glass in my throat, but I typed them anyway. I acknowledged that I made errors in judgment due to personal stress. My phone rang at 9:37. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Brooklyn? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. This is Rachel Richardson, Marcus's wife. I know what my husband and your sister did to you, and I have proof. But if you want it, you need to meet me tonight. Come alone. Don't tell anyone. I'll text you the address. My heart was racing. How do I know this isn't another setup? You don't. But what choice do you have? She hung up. 2 minutes later, a text came through with an address. A coffee shop called The Grind, 20 minutes away. Every instinct screamed trap. But I was drowning, and she was offering a rope. I grabbed my jacket and keys. The coffee shop was moderately busy for a Thursday night. I ordered a coffee I couldn't afford and sat at a corner table, watching the door. 20 minutes passed. No Rachel. Then the door opened, and Heather walked in. My sister, not Marcus's wife. She was holding her phone up, recording. She walked straight to my table, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Brooklyn! Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I got your texts. I'm so worried about you. Please tell me you're not actually going to hurt yourself. Every head in the coffee shop turned toward us. Heather's performance was perfect. Tears in her eyes, genuine concern in her voice. What are you talking about? I said quietly. I never texted you. Please don't lie. Look. She held up her phone, showing our text thread to the entire coffee shop. Messages from my number, talking about not wanting to live anymore, about everything being too hard, about giving up. Messages I'd never sent. That's fake, I said, but my voice was shaking. I never wrote those. You need help, Brooklyn. Professional help. Let me take you to the hospital. She was recording everything. Every word I said. My exhausted appearance, my shaking hands, my obvious distress. I'm calling 911, she announced to the room. My sister is suicidal and won't accept help. No! I stood up, knocking my coffee over. The brown liquid spread across the table and dripped onto the floor. People were staring, pulling out their phones, recording me. I looked like exactly what Heather wanted me to look like. Unhinged, unstable, dangerous to myself. 2 minutes later, sirens, paramedics and police arrived. Heather showed them the fake texts, crying about how worried she was, how I'd been struggling, how our family just wanted me to be safe. I tried to explain it was a setup, but I looked terrible. Exhausted, thin, dark circles under my eyes, shaking, obviously distressed. The texts looked real. Heather looked concerned and genuine. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the paramedic said gently. "Just for an evaluation, to make sure you're safe." "I'm not suicidal. My sister is setting me up. This is all fake." But the more I protested, the more I sounded exactly like someone in crisis denying they need help. They took me to the hospital. 72-hour psychiatric hold for evaluation. I tried to call my lawyer, Diana Marshall, but they took my phone. Said I could make calls tomorrow. Tomorrow. When my rent was now 7 days overdue. When I was supposed to submit my false apology letter to save my job. I sat in a hospital bed, wearing a gown, with no phone, no computer, no way to contact anyone, and realized Heather had just stolen 3 days of my life. 3 days I couldn't afford to lose. The psychiatric evaluation was humiliating in ways I hadn't imagined possible. I sat in a small, sterile room, while a doctor asked me questions in a gentle, patronizing tone usually reserved for small children or dangerous animals. "Brooklyn, your sister says you've been under a lot of stress, that you sent her texts saying you wanted to hurt yourself. Those texts were fabricated. My sister is trying to destroy my life because I stopped giving her money." He wrote something in his notes. "Do you often feel that people are conspiring against you?" "I don't feel it. I know it. My sister's boyfriend is the senior partner at my company. They've manufactured evidence to get me fired. They broke into my apartment and stole my laptop. They vandalized my wall." More note-taking. "Have you been sleeping well? Eating regularly?" "No, because my sister and her boyfriend destroyed my career and my freelance income, and I'm about to be evicted." He nodded slowly, like I just confirmed his diagnosis. "Brooklyn, I'm noticing you seem very fixated on your sister. Is it possible that stress has made you perceive threats that might not exist?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I said quietly, "Can I show you my wall? There's red paint spray painted on it that says family first. That's not a perceived threat. That's vandalism. But you told the police your sister has a key to your apartment, that she had permission to be there. Permission to visit, not to vandalize." He made more notes. The word paranoid was probably featured prominently. They kept me for the full 72 hours. 3 days of group therapy sessions where people shared genuine struggles with mental health, and I sat silent because my problem wasn't mental illness, it was family sabotage. But saying that out loud just made me sound more unhinged. 3 days of missing work without explanation. 3 days of missing the deadline for my apology letter. 3 days of my rent being even more overdue. When they finally released me Monday morning, I was met by a social worker who handed me pamphlets about depression and anxiety disorders, along with a prescription I couldn't afford to fill, and appointments for follow-up therapy I couldn't afford to attend. I took an expensive rideshare service home, $23 I didn't have. The driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror like he was worried I might do something unpredictable. I must have looked terrible. When I got to my apartment, there was a notice on my door. Bright yellow paper impossible to ignore. Eviction notice. 7 days to vacate the premises. I unlocked the door with shaking hands and walked inside. The red paint was still on my wall. Family first. It had dried and darkened, looking like dried blood. I checked my phone. 37 missed calls from work. 15 voicemails. 23 texts. The email from Jennifer was time-stamped Friday afternoon, 2 days ago. "Due to your unexplained absence and failure to submit the requested documentation, Sullivan and Associates is terminating your employment effective immediately. Your personal belongings will be boxed and available for pickup at reception." I'd been fired. I sat down on the floor, surrounded by moving boxes I'd never fully unpacked, and stared at the eviction notice in my hands. No job, no income, no freelance clients, no savings left. 7 days to find a new apartment I couldn't afford, and didn't have the deposits for anyway. I had $312 in my checking account. Everything I'd worked for over 12 years was gone. My career, my reputation, my home, my family relationships, my extended family, my work friends, gone. Heather had won. Completely. Utterly. Totally. I considered calling my mother, apologizing, begging to come back, promising to resume payments if they'd just let me stay in my old room until I figured things out. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was useless. Maybe I couldn't survive without them. Maybe I needed them more than they needed me. I was staring at my phone, my mother's contact pulled up, my thumb hovering over the call button, when I saw my old journal sticking out of one of the moving boxes. A journal from college, bright blue with a broken binding. I pulled it out, flipped through pages covered in my younger handwriting. Dreams and plans, goals and aspirations. I want to start my own consulting firm someday. Help small businesses thrive. Make a real difference. Be independent. Be strong. Be someone who lifts others up instead of being crushed under the weight of other people's expectations. I read that entry 3 times. 22-year-old Brooklyn had written those words, before 6 years of being her family's ATM machine, before she learned that love and money were the same thing in her family, before she'd been beaten down into someone who couldn't recognize her own worth. That Brooklyn wouldn't have called her mother begging to come back. That Brooklyn would have fought. Something hardened inside me. Something cold and clear and sharp. I'd been playing defense this entire time, reacting to their moves, scrambling to survive their attacks. Time to play offense. I was packing my dishes, trying to figure out where I was going to store everything when I couldn't afford a storage unit, when my doorbell rang. A process server stood on my doorstep, clipboard in hand. "Brooklyn Anderson? Yes? You've been served." He handed me a manila envelope and walked away. I closed the door and opened the envelope with trembling hands. A lawsuit. Heather was suing me. For emotional distress. For slander. For making false accusations that had damaged her reputation and relationship. She was seeking $50,000 in damages. The court date was in 45 days. I needed a lawyer I couldn't afford, to defend against accusations that were the complete opposite of reality. My sister, who destroyed my life, was suing me for emotional distress. I slid down against my door until I was sitting on the floor. The lawsuit papers scattered around me like the pieces of my destroyed life. Eviction notice, termination email, lawsuit, destroyed credit, no income, no home, no options. This was rock bottom, the absolute lowest point. I couldn't fall any further because there was nowhere left to fall. I put my head in my hands and cried. Deep, gasping sobs that came from somewhere primal. I cried for the woman I used to be, for the dreams I'd abandoned, for 12 years of working myself to exhaustion to fund other people's lives while my own crumbled. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Probably another bill collector, or my landlord, or some new catastrophe. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, I picked it up. An email from an unknown sender. Subject line. "I know what they did to you. I can help. But you have to trust me." The email continued. "I worked with Marcus 5 years ago. I saw him destroy someone else's career the same way. I have evidence. I have documentation. I know you have no reason to believe me after everything you've been through. But I'm a lawyer, and I specialize in employment retaliation cases. My name is Diana Marshall. Meet me at my office tomorrow at 9. I'll explain everything. You don't have to go through this alone." At the bottom was an address and phone number. I stared at that email for 10 full minutes. Every instinct said trap, setup, another way for them to humiliate me. But what did I have left to lose? I barely slept that night, lying on my mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling, playing through scenarios. Diana Marshall could be working with Heather and Marcus. This could be an elaborate setup to finish destroying me. They could be planning to record me saying something they could use in court, or get me to sign something, or worse. But at 6 in the morning, I got up, showered, put on my last clean professional outfit, and drove to the address in the email. Diana Marshall's law office was in a modest building in downtown, 3rd floor. The kind of place that served real clients with real problems, not corporate giants. The reception area was small but clean, with comfortable chairs and legal magazines scattered on the coffee table. The receptionist, a woman about my age named Grace, smiled warmly. "Brooklyn? Diana's expecting you. Go right in." Diana's office was organized chaos. Files stacked neatly on every surface, 2 computer monitors, diplomas from decent but not prestigious schools, family photos on the credenza. Diana herself was in her late 40s, wearing a practical suit, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. "Brooklyn, thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to trust me." She gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Sit, let me explain." I sat, my purse clutched in my lap, ready to run if this went sideways. Diana opened a file folder. 5 years ago, I represented a woman named Stephanie Chen, She paused, frowned, then corrected herself. Actually, her name was Stephanie Flores. She worked at Sullivan and Associates. She was dating someone who was connected to Marcus Richardson's business network. When she tried to leave the relationship, Marcus orchestrated her professional destruction, almost identically to what's happening to you. False accusations, planted evidence, systematic reputation demolition. What happened to her? She settled out of court with a strict, non-disclosure agreement. She moved to another state, but before she left, she gave me a detailed timeline of Marcus's tactics. I've been quietly documenting his pattern for 5 years, waiting for someone willing to go public. Why me? Diana leaned forward. Because you're the 4th woman in 6 years. Stephanie was the first. There were 2 others who were too afraid or too beaten down to fight back. But you, she gestured at me. You walked away from your entire family to stand up for yourself. That takes strength. The kind of strength it'll take to go up against Marcus and his firm. She opened another folder and spread documents across her desk. Marcus has a pattern. He uses family members and romantic partners to destroy professional competitors or anyone who threatens his control. Heather isn't special. She's a tool. A weapon he's wielding against you. She's my sister. No, Diana said bluntly. A sister loves you. A sister supports you. Heather is an abuser. Being related by blood doesn't change that. The words hit me harder than I expected. An abuser. I'd never thought of Heather that way. But looking at the timeline Diana showed me, the deliberate escalation, the coordinated attacks, the isolation tactics, that's exactly what it was. Abuse. I can help you, Diana said. I can represent you in Heather's lawsuit, and we can file counterclaims, wrongful termination against Sullivan and Associates, harassment claims against Marcus. But I need to be honest with you. This will take months, maybe a year to resolve fully. The legal system moves slowly, and you need to survive until then. I have $312, an eviction notice, and no job. I'll represent you pro bono. That means free, and, Diana hesitated, I have a spare room in my house. My daughter just left for college. The room's empty. You can stay there temporarily, just until you get back on your feet. And I need a paralegal at my firm. The pay isn't great, $15 an hour, 30 hours a week, but it's something. I stared at her. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because when I was 27, I was in an abusive marriage. My husband isolated me from my family, controlled all the money, destroyed my confidence. When I finally got the courage to leave, a woman I barely knew gave me a place to stay and helped me get into law school. She changed my life. I try to pay that forward when I can. Every instinct I'd developed over the past month screamed not to trust this. But I looked at Diana's face, at the photos of her daughter on her credenza, at the organized files of real cases helping real people, and I made a decision. Okay, yes, thank you. Diana smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen directed at me in weeks. Good. Let's get started. Over the next 3 weeks, Diana and I built the case. She had me write detailed timelines of everything that had happened. We gathered evidence. Bank statements proving I'd given my family $342,000. Text messages and voicemails from the harassment campaign. Photos of my vandalized wall. The fake texts Heather had shown at the coffee shop. Diana tracked down Stephanie Flores, now Stephanie, who lived in Oregon. After some convincing, Stephanie agreed to provide an affidavit detailing Marcus's tactics 5 years ago. The patterns were identical. We found the other 2 women Marcus had pushed out of Sullivan and Associates, Emma Gardner and Tracy Walsh. Both were terrified to get involved. Marcus had destroyed their careers and convinced them that fighting back would make things worse. But after meeting Diana and seeing the evidence we'd compiled, Emma agreed to testify. Tracy was still too scared, but she provided documents anonymously. The pattern was clear and damning. Marcus had done this before, multiple times. We had 4 women over 6 years, all with nearly identical stories. I moved into Diana's spare room. It was small but clean, with a comfortable bed and a desk. Diana's house was in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it felt safe. For the first time in months, I could sleep without worrying about someone breaking in or spray painting threats. The paralegal job was entry-level work, filing, research, client intake. But it was legitimate employment with a paycheck. $450 a week after taxes. Not enough to afford my old apartment, but enough to start rebuilding. Diana refused to let me pay rent. Get yourself stable first. We'll talk about rent when you're back on your feet. I worked during the day at the law office, then came home and helped Diana build my case at night. We filed the wrongful termination lawsuit. We filed harassment claims against Marcus. We filed a motion to dismiss Heather's lawsuit as frivolous retaliation. But Heather wasn't done escalating. She found out I was working with Diana. I don't know how. Maybe Marcus had connections at the courthouse. Maybe someone saw me at Diana's office. Heather posted on social media that I was now harassing Marcus with false accusations and frivolous lawsuits, that I was being vindictive and delusional, that our entire family was worried about my mental state. My mother posted a comment. We tried to help her. We gave her everything. This is how she repays us. My father posted, some people can't accept responsibility for their own failures. Tyler posted, my sister needs professional help. Praying for her. They were building a narrative, portraying me as unhinged, vindictive, delusional. Setting up a defense for Heather's lawsuit. The day before the first court hearing for Heather's lawsuit against me, Diana received a package at her office. No return address, no note, just a manila envelope with something bulky inside. Diana opened it carefully, like it might contain something dangerous. Inside was a thumb drive. Should we open it? I asked. Might be malware, Diana said. But her curiosity won out. She plugged it into a computer we kept isolated from our main network, just for things like this. The drive contained dozens of audio files. MP3s, numbered and dated going back 3 months. Diana clicked on the first one. And we heard Heather's voice. Marcus, baby, she actually believed we were done. Brooklyn thinks she's free. This is hilarious. Marcus's laugh. Your performance at that coffee shop was perfect. The fake texts, the crying, calling 911. Did you see her face? She looked like she was about to have a heart attack. And now she's got a 72-hour psych hold on her record. That'll look great in court. Diana and I looked at each other. She clicked on another file. The laptop was the genius move, Heather said. She probably spent weeks on those freelance projects. God, I wish I could have seen her face when she came home to that red paint. Your brother did a good job with the spray paint, Marcus said, very threatening looking. Tyler loves this kind of thing. He's always been good at psychological warfare. We clicked through more files. Hours of recordings. Heather and Marcus discussing the plan to destroy me. Planning the fake accusations at work. Laughing about the coffee shop setup. Heather bragging about how she'd manipulated everyone in our extended family against me. And in one recording, background voices. My mother and father, clearly in the same room. Brooklyn deserves this, my mother's voice said. She cut us off. She needs to learn what happens when you abandon family. My father laughed. She'll come crawling back eventually, and when she does, we'll make sure she never forgets it. Diana stopped the recording. We sat in silence for a long moment. This proves everything, she finally said. This is exactly what we need, but we don't know who sent it, or how they got these recordings. Will they be admissible in court? Diana frowned. That's the problem. If these were obtained illegally, we might not be able to use them. Recording someone without their consent is illegal in most circumstances. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. It was Rachel, Marcus's wife. I've been recording him for months for my divorce. Your family destroyed my marriage too. Now let's destroy them. Those recordings were made in my home. Marcus and Heather were my guests. The recordings are legal. Use them. I showed Diana the text. Well, Diana said slowly. That changes things. Rachel Richardson agreed to meet with us the next morning, early, before the court hearing. We met at Diana's office at 7 in the morning. Rachel looked exhausted, like she'd been crying for months. She was in her early 30s, professionally dressed, but her eyes had the hollow look of someone who'd been through emotional warfare. I discovered Marcus was cheating 6 months ago, Rachel explained. Multiple women. When I confronted him, he tried to gaslight me. Told me I was imagining things, being paranoid. So I started recording conversations in my own home. Legally, I'm allowed to do that. And you captured the conspiracy against Brooklyn by accident? Diana asked. Not entirely by accident. Marcus brought Heather to our house constantly. They planned everything in my living room, my kitchen, thinking I was upstairs or out shopping. I was listening to everything, saving everything. Why? I asked. Why help me? Rachel's face hardened. Because I watched them destroy you, and I did nothing. I watched them laugh about ruining your career, your reputation, your family relationships. And I stayed silent because I was afraid if I spoke up, Marcus would turn on me in the divorce. But last night I realized I already hate who I've become by staying quiet. And you're fighting back. I want to be someone who fights back too. She handed Diana a folder. These are authenticated copies of the recordings with timestamps and metadata. My divorce attorney has copies. Everything was recorded in my home, where I have a legal right to record. The recordings are admissible. Diana smiled. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd just been handed the winning hand. Let's use them. We filed amended complaints that morning, 2 hours before the court hearing. Attached every recording. Detailed the conspiracy. Named Marcus, Heather, Tyler, and Sullivan and Associates. We also filed a countersuit against Heather for defamation, emotional distress, and conspiracy to interfere with employment. At 9:30 in the morning, we walked into the courthouse for Heather's lawsuit hearing. Heather was there with her attorney, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit that Marcus had probably paid for. My parents sat behind Heather, dressed like they were going to church, playing the role of concerned family. Tyler sat next to them, smirking at me when I walked in. Marcus sat in the back row, trying to look uninvolved but clearly there to support Heather. On my side of the courtroom, just me and Diana, 2 women against an army. The hearing began. Heather's attorney presented their case first, painted me as an unstable, vindictive person who'd abandoned my family and was now making false accusations. He cited my psychiatric hold as evidence of mental instability, showed the fake texts Heather had presented at the coffee shop, argued that my accusations had damaged Heather's reputation and relationship. Then it was our turn. Diana stood up, calm and professional. Your Honor, we'd like to submit additional evidence that directly contradicts the plaintiff's narrative. She handed copies of the recordings to the judge, the court reporter, and Heather's attorney. Then she played 3 of them in open court. Heather's voice filled the courtroom, laughing about destroying my career. Marcus discussing the fake accusations, Tyler bragging about the spray paint vandalism. My parents in the background, saying I deserved it. I watched Heather's face go pale. Her attorney's expression shifted from confident to panicked. Marcus stood up and walked out of the courtroom. My parents sat frozen, finally understanding they'd been recorded. These recordings were obtained legally, Diana said clearly. Made by Rachel Richardson in her own home, where she has every right to record. They prove that this lawsuit is retaliatory and without merit. They also prove a coordinated conspiracy to destroy Miss Brooklyn Anderson's career, reputation, and financial stability. We're filing a countersuit and requesting this lawsuit be dismissed with prejudice. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Thompson, looked at Heather over her reading glasses. Is this your voice on these recordings? Heather opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her attorney, who was frantically reading through the transcripts. Miss Heather Anderson, the judge repeated. Is this your voice? Aye. It sounds like me, but it's a simply yes or no question. Heather's eyes filled with tears, her go-to manipulation tactic. Your Honor, I was under a lot of stress. My sister abandoned our family. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. You conspired to have your sister involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility based on fabricated evidence, Judge Thompson said flatly. You admitted on these recordings to theft, vandalism, and coordinating false accusations with her employer. These aren't things said in anger. These are crimes. The courtroom was silent. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Miss Heather Anderson, I'm referring these recordings to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Heather burst into tears. Real tears this time. Not the fake ones she usually weaponized. Her attorney grabbed his briefcase and practically ran out of the courtroom. He knew he'd been lied to, used in a conspiracy, and he wanted distance immediately. My parents sat stunned. Tyler had disappeared at some point during the recordings. Diana and I gathered our documents and walked toward the exit. As we reached the door, my mother's voice called out, Brooklyn, wait. I stopped, turned around. My mother stood in the aisle, my father beside her, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Can we talk, please? No, I said simply. You made your choice. Live with it. As we walked out of the courthouse into the bright morning sunlight, my phone started buzzing. Texts, calls, voicemails, but not from my family. From Sullivan and Associates. From Marcus's law firm. From their attorneys. They wanted to settle. Diana checked her phone and laughed. 3 settlement offers in 5 minutes. That might be a record. Over the next 2 weeks, Everything unraveled for Marcus and Heather, faster than they'd built their conspiracy against me. Marcus was immediately suspended from Sullivan and Associates pending an internal investigation. Rachel filed for divorce and went public with his affairs and unethical conduct. His professional reputation imploded. 3 other clients came forward with complaints about his conduct. Sullivan and Associates offered me a settlement to avoid a lengthy wrongful termination suit. $300,000. Complete expungement of any negative references from my employment record. A written letter of recommendation. And a requirement that Marcus be permanently terminated from the firm. Diana negotiated hard. They agreed to everything. Heather faced charges, not just civil, but criminal. The district attorney charged her with making false reports, filing a false police report, theft, and conspiracy. She took a plea deal to avoid jail time, but she had to pay restitution, serve 200 hours of community service, and spend a year on probation. Her social media influencer career collapsed overnight. Her followers abandoned her when the truth came out. Her friends disappeared. Marcus dropped her completely to try to save his own reputation. She moved back in with our parents. With no income, no prospects, no Brooklyn to fund their lifestyle. My parents faced foreclosure within 2 months. Without my monthly contributions, they couldn't afford the house they'd bought on credit, assuming I'd always be there to cover the payments. They had to sell at a loss and move into a small rental apartment. Tyler's car was repossessed. His gambling debts caught up with him without my money to cover them. Last I heard, he was working at a car wash and living in our parents' spare bedroom. Grandmother moved into a smaller assisted living facility, one she could actually afford on her fixed income instead of the luxury place I'd been paying for. They reached out. All of them. Dozens of calls, texts, emails, begging for help, for money, for forgiveness. I blocked every number, every email, every social media account. My mother sent one final text before I blocked her that I did read. "We're family. Family forgives each other. Please, Brooklyn. We're sorry." I wrote back one sentence. "You had a daughter who loved you enough to sacrifice everything, and you chose to destroy her for money. That's not family. That's abuse." Then I blocked her number and never looked back. With the settlement money, I finally had breathing room, real breathing room. I paid Diana's law firm for all their work. Even though Diana protested, she'd said pro bono. I insisted. Fair payment for exceptional work. I paid off my maxed-out credit card, bought a new laptop, set up an emergency fund with 6 months of living expenses, put the rest in savings for law school. Because Diana had shown me something I hadn't expected. I loved legal work. The research, the case building, the fighting for justice. I was good at it. I got accepted to a part-time law program at a local university. I could work as Diana's paralegal during the day and take classes at night. It would take 4 years instead of 3, but I'd get there. Diana was thrilled. "I was hoping you'd consider law school. You have the mind for it. And the heart. That's rarer than you'd think." I found my own apartment. Nothing fancy. A 1-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with reasonable rent that I could afford on my paralegal salary. Small, but mine. Truly mine. No family with keys. No one who could take it away. I decorated it slowly, carefully, with things I actually liked. Not expensive things, just things that felt like me. Plants. Books. Art prints I found at garage sales. A comfortable couch I bought used but had professionally cleaned. For the first time in my adult life, I came home to a space that felt like peace. Rachel and I became unexpected friends. She'd been trapped in her marriage to Marcus, isolated and controlled, much like I'd been trapped by my family. We understood each other. We started meeting for coffee once a week, then twice a week. She introduced me to her book club. I introduced her to Diana. We built something together, a chosen family of women who'd survived abuse and come out stronger. I made other friends too, real friends, people who liked me for who I was, not what I could provide financially. Sarah from my law classes, David from the law office, Emma, the woman from the library book club Rachel introduced me to. I went to therapy, real therapy, not the involuntary psychiatric hold. I needed to process 12 years of financial abuse and family manipulation. My therapist, Dr. Patricia, helped me understand narcissistic family dynamics, helped me see that I wasn't crazy or selfish. I'd been systematically exploited. "You were trained from childhood to be the caretaker," Dr. Patricia explained, "to measure your worth by what you could provide. Breaking free from that programming takes real courage." I started dating, cautiously. I'd been so focused on work and family obligations that I'd never really dated properly. My first few attempts were awkward disasters. But then I met Nathan, a teacher who loved hiking and terrible science fiction movies, and had no idea about my family drama. We took things slow. He was patient with my trust issues. We're still taking it slow, but it's nice. I started painting again. Something I'd loved in college but abandoned because it felt frivolous when I needed to work extra hours to fund my family's lifestyle. I wasn't good at it, but I enjoyed it. That was enough. I gained back the weight I'd lost, plus a few extra pounds. Healthy weight. My face filled out. The dark circles faded. I started sleeping through the night again. 6 months after the courthouse confrontation, I was thriving. Not rich, not powerful, but stable, happy, free. My paralegal salary was modest. I lived carefully, budgeted strictly, but every dollar was mine. Every choice was mine. Every day I woke up and didn't owe anyone anything. That felt better than any amount of money. One Saturday morning, I was at the grocery store, debating between 2 brands of pasta, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Brooklyn." I turned. Heather stood 3 feet away, pushing a cart with budget brand groceries. She looked terrible. Older than her 28 years. Tired. Her hair needed cutting. Her clothes were cheap, ill-fitting. We stared at each other for a long moment. She opened her mouth, and I saw it happening. The performance. The tears welling up. The victim routine she'd perfected. "Brooklyn, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we're family, can't we?" "No," I said calmly. "We can't." "But I'm your sister." Being related by blood doesn't make you family. Family is people who love you, support you, want what's best for you. You wanted my money, not me. There's a difference. I was wrong. I admit it. But everyone deserves a second chance. Mom and Dad are struggling. Grandma is. "Heather," I interrupted, "I genuinely hope you find your own path to happiness. I hope you learn to build a life that doesn't require destroying other people. But that's your journey to take. Not mine to fund or fix or support." I started to walk away. "You can't just walk away from family," Heather called after me, her voice getting shrill. Other shoppers were staring. I stopped. Turned back one more time. "Yes, I can. Watch me." And I walked away. Down the aisle, through the checkout, to my car. I didn't look back, didn't feel guilty, didn't second-guess myself. For the first time in my adult life, I walked away from my family's manipulation and felt nothing but relief. That night, sitting in my small apartment with my second-hand furniture and my cheap pasta dinner, I thought about that dinner 6 months ago. When Heather had asked how it felt to be useless, I knew the answer now. I was never useless. I was being used, and the moment I stopped allowing it, I became powerful. Not powerful in the way money or status makes you powerful. Powerful in the way self-respect makes you powerful. In the way boundaries make you powerful. In the way choosing yourself makes you powerful. My phone buzzed. Diana, texting about Sunday brunch plans with Rachel and a few other friends from the office. I sent back a yes. I had a family now. One I'd chosen. One that chose me back. Not because of my money. Not because of what I could provide. But because of who I was. Diana, who'd given me a second chance when I had nothing. Rachel, who'd risked her own divorce settlement to help a stranger. Sarah, from law school, who studied with me until 2 a.m. before exams. David from the office, who brought me coffee exactly how I liked it without me asking. Nathan, who'd never once asked about my family drama or how much money I had. These people were my family, my real family. And that realization, sitting in my small apartment eating budget pasta on my used couch, was worth more than $342,000. Worth more than a big house or designer clothes or luxury vacations. It was worth everything. I learned something crucial through this nightmare. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Family is supposed to be a source of love, not exploitation. Your worth isn't measured by what you provide financially. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And real family, the family that matters, are the people who love you for who you are, not what you give them. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And surviving, truly surviving with your dignity and self-respect intact, is the greatest victory of all. 6 months ago, I sat at a dinner table and made a choice that changed everything. I chose myself. I chose my future. I chose freedom over fear. And I'd make that same choice every single day for the rest of my life. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family members or relationships to protect yourself? Have you experienced financial abuse or manipulation from people who were supposed to love you? How did you find the strength to set boundaries? Share your stories in the comments. You never know who might need to hear that they're not alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming life's toughest challenges. And share this with someone who might need the reminder that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort, some validation, or just the reminder that you deserve better than people who only value you for what you can give them. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, real family lifts you up, it doesn't tear you down. Until next time, be kind to yourself. You deserve it.